Ladies and gents, welcome back to my channel. Tonight we're up for the second tutorial. That is we've looked at the small boat and line fishing. Now we're going to move up to the Sjarken. This is a little bit more of a substantial craft. Hopefully you were able to get it fairly quickly. It is definitely worth the loan and the weight and the paying it off. And I love this boat. It's actually so far the most fun I've had. Well, not necessarily. Now, this Sjarken that we're looking at right now is upgraded all the way, so it is a full-on fishing boat ready to tackle the ocean. We've done the upgrades to it, and I have worked it. And I definitely would recommend upgrading this ship all the way because it. Well, let's take a look at the upgrades. But it has quite a bit of chutzpah for carrying fish. So we did do all. Let's take a look here. I owned it. You can have. I'm sorry. I said 20,000 in the last tutorial. I was incorrect. The ship holds 15,000, but that's still over double what the Borgia can hold. And on top of that, you don't have to do all the work yourself anymore because you now have a crew member that can help you. And then the engines up to 50 horsepower on the engine, which I did. I obviously upgraded the radar. One of the things that you're going to have to do if you want to not do. You're going to have to get a gunning table. I think it's automatically equipped, yeah. You start off with the long line hauler when you purchase this boat new. And if you want to switch over to net hauling, which I prefer, then you have to do the net hauler, which is this guy here. So if you do long, you can do line. You can see this is the line hauler, which is funny because it's the same. It changes some of the stuff on the boat, though. You'll see. There we go. Now it's switched over. It's got this table here for hauling net. Okay, so I also upgraded the searchlight. I wanted to try to see what the best searchlight did. And there's no more mast on this boat. All we have is the 2 radar upgrades. So I've got the best radar owned and upgraded already. So the Sjarken is ready to set sail. Let's go ahead and take a look at the market. Make sure we've got some nets that are ready to go. I've got 2 165mm nets. 165 meter nets. We can only deploy one at a time because that's all this boat can hold. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump in here and interrupt my own video. One thing I forgot to talk about as we talk about this boat that I have right now is a 3-man crew, but as we talk about the Sjarken, you're going to need to hire a crew member. Each port that you go to has different crew members. So while you're in Boaty McBoatface, the Borgia, the very first little boat that you get, if you're bored and you're trying to build up miles, sometimes it does help to go to the different islands. And I'll take a look at the map here and show you. Not islands, to the different ports. If we look at Hammerfest, of course, we have the bar bank symbol there, and that means that there will be people available for hire. Over here in Ackerfjord or Ackerfjord, bank for hire, and also we have bank in hire here at Forsol. So you might, if you can't find good crew members in Hammerfest, you might want to make a journey over to Ackerfjord or Forsol. George comes from Hammerfest usually, so you should be able to find him there. And George is the one that we're using on the Sjarken or Sjarken. I have this big arse boat right now, but the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to, in that dock, you're going to click on your town, and the first thing that comes up is your crew menu. You can see here, these are the guys that we have available here in Forsol. They both have a stamina rating, and then they have ratings for all of their abilities. It shows you how much it costs to hire them, and also the percentage rate at which they are going to charge you. So like Ruth takes 5% of the total fish sale every time you sell fish. Olaf only takes 3%. And the great thing is, if you hire them quote unquote young, bring them on board the ship, and then train them up, as long as you don't fire them and have to rehire them, that rate will stay low. So there's something to be said for hiring a young. Now Olaf is nice. He actually isn't too bad. However, he's very unskilled, but he's got a lot of stamina. So he'll be able to work for a long time and then learn those skills as he's going. It probably balances out a little bit. But see, like Roar, he's got a lot of skills, but his stamina sucks. For your first guy, or a girl, whichever you pick, you want to make sure you have somebody with decent stamina, though, because, and also like modern, if you could find a balance of, like if he had a little bit less stamina but a little bit better skills, he would be perfect. You know, Ruth is actually pretty decent, but she needs more stamina. And the reason why I'm saying you need a little bit more stamina is because they run out of stamina. When you're on the Sjarken, the single, you only get one crew member. If they're burned out all the time, you're just going to be waiting for them to recover. So it does help if they have a decent amount of stamina, because then you can work them for longer. However, Olav is so bad because look at, he's like, these skills are so bad, it's going to take him forever to gut. Like he's like when you put him out for gutting fish, he's going to run himself out of stamina anyway, because he's only gutting probably like 300 or 2. Wait, no, it's going to be less than that. It'd be like maybe like 50 fish an hour or 40 or less, because he doesn't know what he's doing. So you can see here on my crew, all the guys are really good, but that's because they're experienced at this point. Now Karen had a lot of skills, but she had only one square, but she was a third crew member. George is if you can find George Merlin, he seems to be the best of all the people that I found. You can see how high his rate is, though. He was expensive. He cost $27,000 to hire, where none of these guys are even close to that. So, but I felt like it was worth the investment, and he paid off. So when you're on the Sjarken, you really want George to be your main crew guy. If you're on a 3-man crew boat, it's maybe not as important, but George has, I tell you what, man, he has really hauled his butt on the Big Arse boat. I mean, even on this boat, he's been a big help. So I would say if you could find George somewhere in the 3 ports that I've shown you, pick him out, because he's going to be your best bet for a good crew member for the Sjarken. And then you can keep him when you move on to the Big Arse boat, or the Vivek Catherine, or the Lunar Bow, or any of the bigger ships, so the Hermes. George can just come with you to the next ship. So anyway, that is the crew menu, and I just wanted to show you that. I didn't want to make sure I covered that part of it, so let's continue. First of all, empty weight. You'll notice that she has quite a bit of get up and go. Not as fast as the Borga under a full load, but still pretty fast. Now you'll notice here at the bottom in our inventory screen, we actually have an additional box. That is our crew box. We click on this, and we can now see that we have a crew. He's resting. This is George. He's been working with me for a long time, and he is quite the fisherman. We also have, he can cook. He can also repair the boat. If the boat has any hull damage, we can throw him in here in about an hour. He fixes 5% of the boat, so you'll notice I'm at 99% if I leave him in there for a little while. George is going to repair my boat. I'll show you again soon. I forgot to get fuel. My bad. We should be fine, though. We're sticking near the bay. There, the boat's 100%, so let me put it back. Now, you'll notice George has a green bar. I'm going to slow the boat down here so we get near the fishing area. That's how quickly we get out of the harbor. See that? We're already where we were with the other boat in seconds. Let's see, there's a nice pocket of cod out there, so we'll move on out there. Let's take a look at George's stats so we can understand them. The stats are always listed by his best. They don't stay in the same order. They're listed by his best attribute. Right now, George is an animal when it comes to hand gutting fish, because I stopped gutting them myself. I let George do the gutting, and so because of that, he is just a monster when it comes to that. George is also level 116, which is high. So George is able to work for hours and hours on end without being pooped out. And what you'll see is there's a green line under his picture. That green line represents how much energy George has left. It takes about 4 or 5 hours for that to fill up all the way if he's been used and abused. But George has quite a stamina there. If you've cooked some burgers, you can give them a hamburger, and that actually allows them to regain their energy twice as fast. So it's a good deal to make burgers and feed it to them when you need them back and working again. But right now George is fine because we are just taking this trip. So we will also notice that, and so basically when you want George to cook, because it takes about an hour per burger, if I throw him in here, it takes him, he's idle right now because there's no burgers to be cooked, but you can see him come out on the deck there and he's making the burgers. So you just put whoever you want to cook, you just stick them in there and they'll make burgers. Once again, the burgers help you to recoup twice as fast. All right, so the next up is the net haul, and we have to do it together. He does not, George does not do it by himself. We have to, I can stick him in there and he'll haul, but he needs help, so I have to help him, and I'll show you how to do that mini game. Last but not least, we have the hand gutting station. I can either gut the fish or George can gut the fish. I usually just have George do it. So let's go ahead and advance forward a little bit, and we'll get up into that nice fishing area. We're going to drop our net. I am going to go ahead and deploy my net. Now the net is a little tricky. You got to keep that box in the middle, and if you go off, you basically press the opposite of the direction that that bar is sliding. So it's sliding left, you press right. If it's sliding right, you press left. And you can see the boat has slowed down to the correct speed. Even though I was flying, it's now at the correct tapping speed. And we're going to lay this net down. And then I'm going to fast travel back to port. I'm going to wait it out. We need to get to 18 hours once again. So, as you guys know, I usually just go back into port. I'm going to actually fuel up when I'm back in port this time because I forgot. And then we'll come back out here and collect the line. But just so you know, in the interim, I'm not going to film all that because you've already seen it before. But I'm just going to run into the dock. Whoop, whoop, there it goes. And so that net's all laid. So that's the little net mini game. Once again, you got to keep that little blue arrow in the center, or it will actually rip the net if you get off so far. And let me tell you something too about that. When you're laying the nets, you got to really watch the weather. If it's stormy and there's a lot of waves, it becomes really difficult to lay that net. So let's see here. We laid the net at 19 minutes ago. That was at 20. So let's see how long it takes to get back into harbor here. We need to calculate the time. So full speed ahead. We're traveling. Took about 45 minutes, so we need to give ourselves an hour lead when we leave the dock tomorrow morning, or in the middle of the night whenever we're not. Should probably wait tomorrow morning. But yeah, so you can see there, if it's really wavy, it's much harder to keep the boat going steady and straight to lay that line. So be careful, because otherwise you're going to end up with a very screwed up line, or it'll just break and then you lose the line. So you have to put or you lose the net. I keep saying line. I'm talking about nets. You'll lose the net and you'll have to put another one out. So all right, we'll be back. I'll catch you when we're out there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the next day. George and I have arrived at our net. The first thing that we're going to do though is we're gonna lay down a second net, because there's a bug with this game. If you damage the net when you're pulling it in, and you've got another net on board, it'll damage both the nets, so it's bugged. So this way I can get the net out of my boat before it gets damaged when I pull it in, because if you don't get every button right on the mini game when you're pulling the net, you will actually damage your second net. So I don't want to... basically, you need to get that fresh net out of the boat before you start working on the other net. Now, when you get a bigger boat and you have a crew that does the net pulling, they don't ever damage the net, so you can just reuse your nets over and over again. But if you damage the net, you have to pay about 1,000 crown to get it fixed. So I would much rather just, put this out there and then try really hard not to damage the net, but not rely on that, because if I damage that net, I can't put this net out. So basically I'm putting this net out. And there it goes, it's out. And so let's go ahead and head over to the other net. We should be over here. We need to get the other side of the boat to the buoy. There's the buoy right there. We have a nice foggy day. This is the next day, by the way, so at 10:42 in the morning on the next day. We got to wait a little while because you see that these are green. In about 5 minutes, those are going to go. 5 game minutes. Okay, 10 game minutes. At about 18:45, they will start to turn blue. We'll be able to pick them up. There it is. Just scoot forward, take our time getting up there. 18:35, I think it's 18:45 is when they switch over, so, but it might be 19. It's funny because in some places it says to pick it up where they're green, like in the notes at the beginning of the game, but you actually want to wait till they're blue to pick them up. 39, 40, there they go. Boop. So what we do is we're going to put George Maynard on the fish, and then I have to press E, and I'm going to get on there too, so George will step in, and the line's loading, and I have to do this little mini game. Take your time, but don't go too long. Once again, pressing the wrong key will break the net, so... Now this boat can only carry one net full of fish, even at full capacity. Now, I don't remember if I said this or not, but I was wrong about the capacity too. This ship has a 10,000 kilogram capacity. There we go. We've reached our yearly quota for cod. We'll go over that in a second. So I caught 300 cod, but I got to throw them back. So you can see the boat is... I mean, we got... That wasn't a very great catch, but I'm also in a little bit of a... I had to move it, by the way. I had a little bit of a recording error. So I had to redo this. So the net's actually wasn't in the greatest place. Instead of being out here where it was super hot for cod, it's here where it's like not quite as much fish going on. We actually probably should be fishing these areas here. But we got some fish, so you get the idea. So let's go ahead and take this back in. And I'm going to start George. George did a good job pulling, and now he's going to start gutting those fish. And we'll talk about quotas. So if I go into my storage menu, I look at my fish. My fish are 8 minutes old. The fish start aging. They start to rot after 8 days. We talked about that before too, so I don't really need to cover that too much. But our quota, we have gotten all the cod that we can catch. Pretty soon we're not even going to be able to catch haddock or redfish. We're only going to be able to catch pollock on this boat. Now, you probably won't run into that situation until way further in. The reason that's happening on this boat is because I ground out, 200 million or 2 million krona. 200 million, oh my gosh. I ground out 2 million krona on this boat in order to buy the Vivek Catherine, which I own now. So that's I fished the crap out of the cod, and so this boat is pretty much used up at this point until next year when the quota starts over again. And the Vivek Catherine has a much larger quota, so we are, and we're not going to go over that, but we did go over it with this one. So this boat is still useful for catching pollock. One of the suggestions I might make is that you could change it back from net fishing, which is free to change it over because you own both parts. Change it back to line fishing, get 2 like 500 meter lines or 1,000 meter line, and you're just gonna bait it with mackerel because the pollock like mackerel, and keep selling pollock out of this boat as long as you possibly can if you run out of things to sell. You know what I mean? Because but honestly, you're probably going to be in the bigger boat by this time and working towards the next bigger boat. So this is like if you're like at the end of the season and there's nothing to do, you could run this boat. Now we're going to go to I'm going to go to Hammer Fest Centrum because my reputation is not 100% here. So I'm going to go there and try to get my rep up. It doesn't. Like I said, I haven't really found any benefit to having increased reputation at these ports. You don't get any discounts or anything, so it doesn't. They said they're supposed to pay more, but I haven't really noticed a huge difference in pay between the two. Now we're gonna have kind of a down pay on this one because obviously we don't have a full load, and George hasn't finished gutting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna advance time, let George finish gutting, and then we'll sell the fish. So we get here, and I'm gonna trigger the dock, and it says, "Would you like to sell?" And I'm going to say no. Cancel. I said no, but it's whatever. Okay, so now we're going to fast forward time. I'm going to say he needs probably a good 8 hours, and he's done. So let's look at George. He's going to be pooped because he's standing out on deck all that time. So let's take a look at the man. I'm going to undock, and I'm going to go in to check out George. He's tired. He's resting. There he goes. He goes into his little house there at the back of the boat. Where does he go? Poor George. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the dock, and yes, we're going to sell these. Boom. $156,000. That's not bad for a not full load. With the cod, you'd be up to about 200 to 220. So with that missing cod, we are definitely hurting, but we still made a decent amount of money. So we're being sucked into the dock. Let's take a look and see here. How many hours are left on this? This has been out for 9 hours, so we need about 10 more hours. It's about an hour boat trip, so let's just, we could go even longer than that though. So let's go ahead and rest. We're gonna do 10-hour skip. Go skip, boop, and then we're gonna go ahead and launch. That's not, yeah. See, that's ready now. So we're going to go ahead and launch from the dock. This dock's harder to launch from because we can't go forward. We have to go backwards. So back it up. And off we go in the Sjarken. we're ready to haul that load. And I think that pretty much covers it for the tutorial. So you can see George is well rested now because we stayed 10 hours in dock. He had time to get some sleep. And he's up to level 116, so he's hopping along there. You can see his rest level, the green bar is up all the way. And we are happy fishing, and we're going to go catch some more pollock. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments below. And I hope that you found this information useful. But net fishing is a lot of fun. You make a lot of money. Once again, you're not really targeting any fish. You're just grabbing everybody. So once you start reaching quotas, it's probably a good idea to go back to the line fishing again. But and also the other tip, don't forget, put your new net out before you grab the old one. If you mess up when you're pulling the net in, you hit the wrong button, which I often do, you're going to break both nets just because it's a bug in the game. So be aware of that. Have a great night, guys. Be sure to subscribe. Thumbs up always help. And I look forward to seeing you on the mighty ocean, the Barents Sea.